Welcome to Storytimer. Junior Murphy and William H. Nagel. Danny Rouse killed Nellie Mikesell in September of 1974. He quietly approached her home while she sat in a rocking chair near a window and shot her in the head. He then broke into the rural Winamac, Indiana farmhouse to see what he had done up close. Nellie's murder would not be solved for more than 3 decades. In 1975, Danny Rouse shot Leila Hildebrandt as she drove home from Winamac one evening in October. She was shot in the left side of the head, and her car then veered into the trees on the side of the road. Initially, everyone thought this was just a fatal car accident. Thankfully, someone took a closer look at her head injuries. Her murder would also go unsolved for decades. In late October of 1979, Danny Rouse was living in Wichita, Kansas, when he attacked a woman in her home with a knife. Catherine Crowley survived multiple stab wounds. Danny slashed the throat of her 5-year-old son before he fled. Tragically, Jason Learst bled to death in his bed. Rouse was captured fleeing the state via a Trailways bus. He was tried, convicted, and sentenced. All his appeals were denied over the years. Inexplicably, Kansas decided to parole him in March of 2006 after only 26 years. His brother in Monterey, Indiana, offered a house to him. On Halloween night in 2006, Rouse would strangle and stab a 16-year-old co-worker. Stephanie Wagner had stopped to help him with some car trouble on their way home after a shift at the restaurant where they were both employed. This time, Danny faced the death penalty. He confessed then to the murders of Nellie Mikesell and Leila Hildebrandt. He provided details that only the killer would know. He now serves a life sentence in an Indiana prison. One thing we know about serial killers is that they don't sit still. Once they start killing, they don't stop until they are caught. There were several unsolved Indiana murders near Danny Rouse in the late 1970s. Some have extremely similar details. On June 30th, 1974, Junior Murphy, 31, was killed very near the area where Leila Hildebrandt was killed. He had left a bar that evening at King Lake after a family argument. Mr. Murphy lived in Kokomo, but was visiting his mother at her vacation trailer at King Lake. King Lake is just off Highway 17 and a 10-minute drive from Monterey. It was said in the paper that he ran from the bar. I found a yearbook photo of Junior Murphy from Swayze, Indiana. This Junior Murphy was a cross-country runner. Did the murdered Junior Murphy take off for a run that night to get some exercise and get some frustration out? What were the nature of his fatal head injuries? Leila Hildebrandt's 1975 head injuries were first attributed to a car accident. Could Junior Murphy have been shot in the head by the serial killer who lived minutes away as he ran down the road? I was unable to find a death certificate, obituary, or any other newspaper articles about Mr. Murphy's death. I cannot find him on findagrave.com. His unusual death was reported in an article about Brenda Gintner's death and Leila Hildebrandt's death. Otherwise, I would have never found it. On June 6th, 1975, Brenda Ginter was stabbed and strangled with an electrical cord in her North Judson, Indiana apartment. Brenda worked at the time at Arrowhead Engineering in Knox, Indiana. Did Danny Rouse work there too? Arrowhead closed down in 1977. Rouse was working at Cessna in Wichita in 1979. Brenda was strangled and stabbed just as Rouse's last victim, Stephanie Wagner, was in 2006. There's also another unsolved shooting eerily similar to Leila Hildebrandt's of a motorist, William H. Nagel, near Wolcott, Indiana, in March of 1977. Nagel was a 50-year-old successful business owner. Nagel was shot late at night with a shotgun at close range through the driver's side window while driving. Wolcott is only a 51-minute drive from Winamac. It could be just a copycat killing, but it could also be the very same perpetrator with the very same MO who was bored one night and went for a drive. If you grew up in rural Indiana like I did, you'll know that driving around the back roads was and still is a fairly common pastime. When I was a teenager and young adult, I would go for drives with friends or just by myself. It's entirely possible that Danny was out driving around just looking for a random victim. On the other hand, perhaps Nagel was killed by someone who would inherit or by a business associate who might benefit in some way. If Danny Rouse did work at Arrowhead Engineering in Knox, Indiana in the 1970s, and he remained employed with them until the plant shut down in 1977 in July, then he was still in Indiana when William H. Nagel was killed in Walcott. We know that Danny moved to Wichita and was in Wichita in October of 1979 and was employed as a drill press operator at the Cessna factory. Did he do similar work at Arrowhead Engineering? From what we know about the murders Rouse is convicted of, he seems to have murdered whenever and wherever the desire and opportunity presented itself. These other cold cases definitely need to be considered. Junior Murphy, Brenda Gintner, and William Nagel had long lives ahead of them. They deserve justice. Rest in peace, Junior, Brenda, and William.